What keeps you awake at night?
Sea levels are rising globally.
Fears fueled by horror stories.
Among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous.
Another series of deadly terror attacks.
Because you know that thing your brain does in the middle of the night? This crazy thing where it takes a small problem and it just makes it enormous?
How are you?
Oh, well, it is 6:18 p.m. and I am drinking a cappuccino.
And I am drinking a Mike's Hard Lemonade.
So we have two very different energies right now.
Yeah, you want to be wired. I want to be just slightly inebriated.
You just need to take the edge off because I'm presenting today. We are introducing our new topic, and that is fad diets.
God, I'm so excited. You have no idea how jazzed I am for this.
Is it because you're drinking Mike's Hard Lemonade?
That could be part of it. No, I'm so interested in this, and it sounds like you've got a little bit of a doozy for us today.
I do. So in another life, I was an agricultural engineer. I think I've mentioned this once or twice.
So many years ago.
Dude, it was like legit 5 years ago.
There are people over 35 right now that are like, how fucking dare you?
So sorry, our demographic of 35-year-olds.
Yeah, somehow I don't believe that that's true at all. Anyway.
But yeah, I really liked food science. It's actually why I got into science at all. Who would have known that I would have liked math? And I really got into food science because I was in a culinary arts department at my conservatory school, which I've discussed and hate with a venom.
Whee! Yeah, OSHA.
Hate with a venom. And God, didn't you apply there recently?
I did, yeah.
Maybe
I was about
you should
to
pull it back.
No, there's no way I'm getting that job.
Did you take the interview or they?
No. They never even actually called me in. It was like an administrative position, which I've never done. I was just kind of shooting in the dark at that point because I was desperate. So
yeah,
we've all been there, right?
Yeah, to thrash back to Matt applying to 130 jobs a day.
It's the worst. It is the worst.
You know, I think he told me there was some point where I'd actually applied to all of the jobs. And I went, what do you mean by that? He said, Indeed straight up said, we have no more jobs for you. And he was like,
oh no.
This is a low. This is
as bad as it gets, huh? Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, this is irrelevant. So yes. I'm going to go into specifically why this diet in particular fucking kills me.
And others.
Right? Oh, and others. But the one that I'm focusing on is keto.
Woo! Wow.
And I knew in advance that this would be the one that Brooke had no figment of her imagination was like, maybe she'll do something other than keto.
No, it was always going to be fucking keto.
Yeah, you were always going to be keto. So we did this poll on Twitter that was like, what do you want us to talk about? And I'm like, this is a formality. I'm doing keto.
Like, it was more like, what do you want Brooke to talk about?
So I hope you've pinned those in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
I, on the other hand, will be talking about keto, and as I tend to, let's begin at the beginning of time with Jesus.
Oh.
Now.
Oh. Okay.
So, a lot of my summary on this and a lot of the background, as I'm sure many of you are aware, there's this huge controversy with true crime about a podcaster that is they were blatantly plagiarizing people word
Oh yeah, that was
for
a recent
word.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I myself and Brooke has never done that. However, I am on edge. So
okay.
I'm gonna as I go pepper in where I got all of these from. I don't quote people directly unless I say, but I'm sweating, quite literally and figuratively.
You are in a closet, though.
Oh my god, it's so fucking hot. So, a lot of this history came from an excellent review paper called The History of Keto from James W. Wheels.
Thank you, James.
Of the University of Tennessee. So credit where it's due. This actually was a really excellent background on where the keto diet came from. Now, before we even go into where it comes from, do you know where the keto diet comes from?
I know where keto, the word, comes from, but
Excellent.
past that, no
Past
man.
that? Well, it's based on this foundation of fasting and intermittent fasting. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So fasting has been well documented through all of human history as a treatment for a myriad of diseases. And you would know this because you had a whole religious thing and I did not. Do you remember that passage in the Bible? Is that too much?
Oh, I took a drink at the wrong time. I had a whole religious thing. I sure did. I sure did, yeah. Which passage in particular, since I apparently have a dictionary understanding of the Bible?
It's about Jesus healing an epileptic.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So you're just about to give me shit about how you don't have a photographic memory of the Bible, and you fucking remember exactly what I'm talking about? Fuck off. So they actually speculate that Jesus was able to heal the epileptic through the treatment of fasting. Now, as a qualifier for what they didn't know at the time, fasting has the effect of lowering blood sugar levels, which I'll get into.
Sure.
And it can lower blood pressure, and it has other treatment possibilities. So for many medical conditions, fasting can actually improve symptoms, and so that's why I think it's been used for much of medical history as a last resort of well, we tried getting the ghosts out of your blood, but why don't you just stop eating for a bit?
We did the leeches, so we're really up against a wall here.
Yeah, so just stop eating. So there's a couple different types of fasting, kind of summarized from Healthline's Benefits of Fasting, and I have much to fucking say about that article.
Okay.
But they kind of just go over water fasting. You only drink water. Juice fasting. You only drink fruit or vegetable juice, which, by the way, I've done. And as someone with acid reflux, that is not the one for you.
Yeah.
That shit gave me gnarly acid reflux.
Sounds like hell.
Intermittent fasting.
You got it.
Is the intake of partially or completely restricted foods for a set amount of time. So it's a bodybuilder thing where they're from the hours of 12 to 6, don't eat anything. I don't really get it, but whatever. Partial fasting, so that's eliminating certain foods for a set amount of time, and then calorie restriction, which every girl from Southern California is familiar with. So, woof.
Yeah, got a little reel in there.
Woo! So, fasting has actually been specifically applied to the treatment of epilepsy, and in the early 1900s for pediatric epilepsy, since there were no drugs that were commonly available at the time.
Gotcha.
Now, during fasting, just kind of as some physiological background, and as a qualifier, I can go into specifically on a biological level what is occurring, but I made the executive decision at 1 a.m. last night to not go over that because it's very boring for everyone but me.
Yeah, that's not much in the way of entertainment value, so you're welcome.
Yes, people would be like, damn, if this bitch says cofactor one more time. So during fasting, because you're not eating anything, there's a big deficit of carbohydrates.
Sure.
And your body metabolizes carbohydrates into simple glucose monomers in order to generate energy molecules, ATP. We've all been in biology class at least once.
It was so many moons ago, but yes.
But yes, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And so when you have a deficit of carbohydrates, your body switches to breaking down fat. And everybody knows this, if you've seen any depictions of starvation, fat begins to get, broken apart after they've stopped eating. Right. And when you break down fat, it produces ketone bodies in the process. And this is where the term comes from, ketosis. Mm-hmm. And ketone bodies, as two examples, are acetone and alpha-hydroxybutyric acid. and it's going to be in small levels, but that's what's being yielded in addition to a means of producing energy through ketosis, which we don't even have time to get into. So obviously, as you can kind of bet here, a diet of regular fasting is pretty difficult to maintain. So
Sounds
it's not really
awful.
Yeah, it's not really a sustainable long-term treatment, right? And so I believe it was like early 20s, Roland Turner Woodiot observed that these ketone bodies are produced during fasting or diets low in carbohydrates.
Right.
And then Russell M. Wilder, also about the same time period, I think within the same year, suggested that there are means of stimulating ketosis through alternative means that would have the same effect as fasting. So really at the end of the day, when you're fasting, the biggest change is you're switching from a carbohydrate metabolism to a lipid-based metabolism. So his argument is if you can stimulate ketosis without starving yourself, you're going to have the same therapeutic effect as if you were regularly fasting. So he keyed the term the ketogenic diet, which is one with really low carbohydrates, really high in fats, and then about adequate protein with what is like calorically required. Now, I want to be like very clear because like one, there is high success with this application towards pediatric epilepsy.
Right.
And I go into it later, but essentially there are speculations on how these specific ketone bodies operate within the body and why that is therapeutic. It's all kind of in theory. They haven't directly determined it yet, but kind of an example I give that I think will carry over best is when you're born, your body is in ketosis as it like adapts and acclimates to like regular food sources. And during that period, there are ketone bodies in your circulation system because it's breaking down fat. And that is said to have an effect at preventing infantile brain damage.
Whoa.
And so there's this current research going on about like instead of switching to a ketogenic diet, which usually has a transitionary period of about 3 days because you have to actively switch your body's metabolism, which is hard.
Right, yeah.
You could take like oral ketone sources, exogenic ketone sources, and kind of stimulate the same effect. So the actual mechanisms are kind of murky, and then everything I do know about it, again, is not fun. But there is actual scientific evidence of this being an effective therapy. So you do change your metabolism, and it does have an effect as there are now ketones circulating through your body. Now, to characterize the ketogenic diet, you are drastically reducing your carbohydrate consumption as your body switches from metabolizing the carbohydrates to fat. And by increasing your fat intake, you encourage this metabolism by providing that energy source, right? Because by alternative means, if you were fasting, it would break down your own body fat and adipose tissue. And this treatment is not to encourage weight loss. In fact, that would be a big concern if you were prescribed this diet, is they don't want you to lose weight. You need to supply your body with alternative like fat resources.
You hear that, everybody? You're not supposed to lose weight.
So that's really interesting, and I want to like qualify that because we're going to kind of go into how restrictive this diet really is when you do it at a medical level.
Right.
And when they prescribe it to children, again, this is generally only for pediatric epilepsy. My understanding is that it works for certain forms of epilepsy, and then over some years, if there's some success, they're able to kind of carefully wean off, the kids from this diet and still have a protective measure against their epilepsy.
Right. So the goal is not for them to stay on it forever.
It's not sustainable for them to stay on it forever.
Right. Cool.
Isn't that interesting?
So
the diet is highly restrictive, and one of the reasons it's generally only recommended for children is due to the fact that it's much easier to manage if like an adult is managing it for them.
Right.
So like to qualify, and I crunched the numbers on this, the traditional like rigid ketogenic diet, one that would be prescribed medically, has a 3-to-1 ratio of fat calories to carbohydrate calories.
Jesus.
fat calories to carbohydrate calories. And in a more stricter sense, kind of depending on the patient, they could do a 4-to-1 or a 3-to-1, kind of depends. It seems across the board that patients are only, and this is probably based off of pediatric calculations, you're only allowed 10 to 20 grams of carbs a day. So like for like a qualifier, a regular bagel is 48 grams. So, like, this is, like, no carbs. This is, like, trace carbs.
Close to zero.
Right? And about 90% of your caloric intake is from fat.
Okay.
That's a lot.
It is, yeah.
And the effectiveness based on a study in 1972 by S. Livingston found that in childhood epilepsy, this had a rate of 52% complete control and about a 27% improvement in management. So, I kind of touched on some of the things that it is beneficial in newer research because there's kind of a resurgence in interest, and I'll kind of talk about why. New studies have found that it can reduce seizures, it can regulate inflammation, it has protective effects over mitochondria, it decreases oxidative stress, which is something that results in cellular injury. Other applications is it could possibly be a good means of controlling diabetes because you're producing almost no glucose, right? Because you've switched your metabolism. So it reduces the amount of insulin your body's producing, and there's a lot of different applications of this. But as you can kind of see in the way that I've described it, it would be pretty dangerous to go off this, like if you weren't
don't need
being
it medically
monitored, right? And so the reason why this actually tapered off as a treatment method is, again, I said at the time there were no epilepsy medications available. And there are epileptic drugs now, and in fact, as they became more and more patented and released, this just kind of fell into less and less effect. Many epileptic drugs have really, really dangerous side effects. So I'm actually on an anticonvulsant for my bipolar disorder in like a much lower dose, but it's called Lamictal. And when I was prescribed it, they said if you notice any rash within the next week and a half, go to the emergency room immediately.
Whoa.
Because it can cause Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is when your body starts attacking its own neurons and eating away at the axons that line your neurons. Potentially causing paralysis. And so that's what they told me. I had another friend that was put on Lamictal, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of sweaty about it. And he was like, dude, my psychiatrist told me straight up, by the time you notice the rash, you will probably be close to paralysis and should be going to the doctor anyway. It's a very, 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 very rare side effect, but does happen, right? And so that's just one anti-epileptic.
That's one hell of a dice roll.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, do you want to be sad or paralyzed? It's very hard to say. I chose just paralyzed just in case.
I guess so, yeah.
I'm fine. So a couple of these drugs have other, these are drugs that are acting on the brain. So some may actually yield symptoms of psychosis or affected cognitive ability.
Very cool.
Like slowness or kind of irrational responses, confusion. And I don't say any of this as by saying don't take your epileptic medication.
Right.
That's not good. I would never stop taking Lamictal. But I'm saying there are genuine reasons for people to be a little apprehensive of the drugs prescribed to epileptic people. Right. And so as a result of this falling out of use, because, even again, this had a 52% success rate, and it was only for certain types of epilepsy, and it was not sustainable long term.
Right.
So they transitioned people off of it, and as it became less and less common, it's not really actually offered at many epilepsy wards or clinics, and they don't really offer it in their treatment plan. And so many, many medical professionals aren't even trained in how to consult a patient on a clinical ketogenic diet.
Great.
Many dietitians aren't trained in it because it's kind of old. And so there's kind of this belief for some people that the ketogenic diet isn't an effective means of regulating epilepsy, and a lot of people say that comes from the place of like I said, it is a strict 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio of fat to carbs. So, like, at that point, you have to have somebody calculating literally every meal you eat, planning them out in rigid meal plans. If you don't do it rigidly according to the ratios, it doesn't work, right? And so if you have somebody that's not trained in how to do that, then, it's not going to work.
Right.
You have to manually change your body's internal natural metabolism in order to get this to work. And that's not something you could just do by upping your fat intake.
Right. Like, which is kind of hard to do by yourself. Yeah.
Right. And, it's pretty common when you go into a ketogenic diet, it takes about 3 months for you to see a ton of effects. Anyway, for epilepsy, it takes about 3 days to 2 weeks for you to kick into that new metabolism. They call it the keto flu.
Right.
Because you're starving your body of, like, an energy source. Your body freaks out, you know?
I know people who did it
Yeah.
and just felt fucking awful the entire time during that, like, span.
Yeah, you're starving for 2 weeks. Like, you're consuming food, but your body hasn't adapted to that.
Right.
So you're genuinely just starving for 2 weeks. And so, as a result, if you are clinically prescribed the ketogenic diet, right, you're required to go to a doctor very regularly for them to measure the ketones in the blood, to measure, your insulin, to measure all of your nutrients, because 10 to 20 grams of carbs a day doesn't afford you a lot of vegetables. So this diet is actually pretty poor in vegetables. And so you are going to be very, very closely monitored by a medical team, and you have to there's no wiggle room in this diet. Which is kind of why it fell out of use, understandably so. Especially for a child.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Like, sorry, if you eat a carrot, you're going to go into epileptic shock. Like, you can't eat carrots. They're full of carbs.
Right, yeah.
So, so let's go into some of the concerning effects to play a little pro-con here. So since 90% of your caloric intake is coming from fat, this is obviously not going to be super applicable for people with fat consumption issues. Me particularly, I have a very long history of heart disease and stroke in my family. So I'm not too inclined to make 90% of my caloric intake come from fat.
Yeah, not exactly for you, huh?
And it also, there's been a couple articles that I kind of read on the fattiness of keto, or like recipes. And they call it this like fat bomb, where in order to meet that quantity of fat that's required of you to meet your caloric like intake, people will like load up on coconut oil, which is literally just saturated fat.
Yeah, what?
It's literally vegetable lard.
Yeah.
Because they just need to meet that caloric intake. So this is like objectively an unhealthy thing to do, because, if you upped your fat intake, they actually said in a lot of the epileptic websites that a lot of people discount how much fat is available in like non-saturated sources like nuts or certain like not fruits, but like they gave examples of like non-saturated fat sources, which is important because like scientifically high consumption of saturated fats is not good for you. So again, this is kind of another one of those things you should be consulting with a dietitian, because the dietitian is going to increase your fat intake, but they're going to be like, you should definitely load up on avocados and olive oil and nuts. And then people are like, I'm going to put butter directly into my coffee. And you're like,
oh God, what?
No.
Is that a thing? Did you just make that up?
No, it's called bulletproof coffee.
Fuck off.
It's, well, yeah, 100%.
That's heinous.
Which
That's
also,
insane.
if I may, it's a regular thing that they consume in like the Alps, like the tribal communities there, because it is so cold and they are burning so many fucking calories on the regular to stay alive that they can afford putting butter in their fucking coffee.
Can I just, like, what would that even taste like? Jesus
It's gross.
Christ.
It's gross. So I think I sipped it once and I was like, this is gross.
Gah.
Yeah, so I have much to
Oh my God.
And so I actually worked at a coffee shop for a series of time. I think we talked about this in one of my minisodes.
Yeah.
And so people doing keto all the time would order this one drink that I didn't even know existed until I worked in a coffee shop called a breve. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It is a latte made with half and half.
Gah.
It is. I tried it once. I couldn't. I drank one sip and I was like, this is gross. This is objectively gross.
Man, I'm
Imagine
not a
drinking
fan.
heavy whipping cream.
Yeah, like I'm not a fan of coffee, but Jesus.
Yeah, so I did the math because I wanted to like compare how many calories, okay?
Right.
A regular standard, I'm going to say 2% milk latte is about 134 calories. Okay.
Okay.
A breve, a medium breve, is 470 calories.
Oh my god.
With 370 of them coming from fat.
Yeah, okay. Jesus.
And so like that's
I'm
the
speechless.
thing that would like blow my mind is I wouldn't get into arguments because I want tips, but like it's these people who are clearly like they're like I'm losing weight on keto, and I'm like, buddy, 370 calories of fat from saturated fat ain't
That's a
doing you
lot,
favors.
yeah.
That's not good for you.
No, like just because you're losing weight doesn't mean it's healthy.
Right? And like what, 90% of, let's say you have a 2,000 calorie diet, like 1,800 calories a day from fat. That's like a good chunk of your entire fat intake for the day in a fucking like latte.
In a drink. Yeah.
Right? So something else that I mentioned is fiber uptake, because the common effect of the keto diet is constipation because you're not eating vegetables. You can't eat starchy vegetables.
Yeah.
You can't eat like leafy greens. You can't eat anything that's like...
Shit gets kind of backed up when you're not eating fucking fiber.
Right? Because you can't eat no carbs, nothing, right? So that's a concern.
Oh,
Usually they'll
boy.
treat you with like laxatives and stuff like that. I mean, but again, regulared. It's sensitive enough where I was reading, if you have an epileptic medicine that has like sugar in it or that has like a starch in it to like stabilize it, they'll switch you to another alternative because you can't even have the sugar or the starch in your pill or it's going to fuck with this diet. Like, that's how sensitive this diet is, right? You can't just fucking decide to order a breve and call it the same.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
god.
I'm losing my fucking mind.
No, yeah.
So many fruits and vegetables, contain carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables are, generally speaking, pretty huge sources of vitamins.
No, that was the first thing I thought when you were like,
you can't have
eat fruits or vegetables. Where do you fucking get your nutrients?
So a lot of them, if you're eating meat, if you're eating meat, you're gonna get
If you're
most
eating Matt.
Sorry, Matt. If you're gonna get a lot from meat. Sorry, vegans out there, but like, meet me halfway here. If you're not eating any fucking vegetables, they got to get it from somewhere.
Sure.
So for someone who is on this diet, they will probably be medically prescribed vitamins and supplements to compensate for the fact that they are going to have vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And as long as like a dietitian is regulating it and keeping an eye on your blood levels, you will be fine. They're going to keep an eye on you. Going to make sure you're not at any deficit. And
But
so,
that's an if.
and we talked earlier about how you have to be really careful with weight loss here. One, because this is a juvenile diet. You don't want kids to be losing weight, but
No.
weight loss is indicative that you're not consuming enough fat to give your body energy because your body is so sufficiently starving that it's going into your own fat reserves, which is not the purpose of this diet. The purpose of this diet is to reduce the amount of like glucose and insulin you have running through you and increase ketone bodies. And so beyond it being just kids, what area of your body has the highest concentration of fat? Fool! Sorry.
Right? Stomach, maybe?
Oh, boy.
I don't know.
No.
Your ass? Is it your ass, Olivia?
It's your brain.
Really? Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's 60% fat.
Oh, fuck. That's cool.
You're like,
I
hey.
am legitimately, in this moment, you were listening to a human learn something. I had no idea. I'm gonna get so many, like, tweets, like, what a fucking moron. I didn't pass biology, but, like, yeah, sue me. I don't remember.
fat.
Fuck.
Right? So, like, that is a concern that I would feel reasonable to have. Of like, if you, like, that's the reason why, when people have eating disorders, at some point, if you're losing a ton of fat, I mean, beyond your muscles atrophying, your brain is a huge source of fat. Concern.
Yeah, no, I am now worried.
And so I actually read some studies on like any concerns with the ketogenic diet, obviously other than, mineral or vitamin deficit, constipation, concerningly high consumption of fat. So one that I read, I'm going to qualify it because I do have science brain, so I will kind of qualify, and it's not as headliney as many of these places report. So there was a study from Nanfeng Hospital from Southern Medical University in China, and they studied the effects of the ketogenic diet on rats, which is not a directly comparable model to humans, but was definitely,
obviously.
the results made me a little concerned. And they found that the animals that had an extended exposure to the ketogenic diet actually had a reduce in bone density. They qualify that part of it is you're going to decrease in bone density when you lose weight objectively, because your body does not need to have a higher density to support weight, just physiologically.
Yeah.
So, and there's a BMI decrease in these rats. What was interesting to me is that they didn't observe any calcium or phosphorus absorption deficiencies. That was fine. But their hypothesis is that the elevated ketone levels actually affected the bone metabolism. So the ability of these animals to build bone was compromised. Now, this is yet to be observed fully in adults. Again, this is not a super highly studied area. The ketogenic diet came back into popularity, I'm going to say about the 90s. Right? Late 90s.
Sure, yeah.
And then additionally, if this was a medically a diagnosed diet that they're keeping an eye on, I really doubt that there'd be a huge issue with bone density issues. But still of concern, because my point being is that we still don't know a lot about this diet in a medically advanced way, because it kind of got phased out 70s and 80s, right? We're just bringing it back. And I think we have a shitload of technology available to us to see how this affects people long term. Because like I said, this was not a long-term method of managing epilepsy, because it's not sustainable. And I'm going to kind of talk about that, because one of the biggest reasons, and this is actually one of the reasons that keeps me up at night, because this is not a long-term sustainable diet, any weight loss is gained back, just to clarify for everybody that still is considering doing this, because you're not making long-term lifestyle changes. You're just changing your metabolism for a while. Right. And I could go deeply, deeply, deeply into all the shitty garbage keto food that's on the market. That's you're still eating cookies. You're eating cookies within your dietary budget, but you're still eating cookies.
Yeah.
Regardless. And so if you do that and then you switch off the keto diet, you haven't changed anything. You haven't increased your activity. In fact, dietitian Mary Condon actually said people gain more weight back than they had before the transition.
Jesus. Okay.
So, there's literally no benefit from a weight loss standpoint. We don't even have fucking time to go into the affordability of this diet, considering it's mostly fat and meat, which the quality of fat and meat increases with money.
Okay. And
the other thing is those niche keto foods that make keto eating objectively delicious are very expensive. Think about back in the day, people who had legitimate gluten allergies. That shit was fucking awful. Old style brown rice pasta was the fucking worst. I know, because I consumed it. And now they have fancy, soft, moist, gluten-free products.
Yeah.
But that shit is so fucking expensive, right?
Right, of course.
A gluten-free loaf of bread, the bougie nice kind, is $8, right? Versus $3 for
a normal loaf
bread.
Of bread. Yeah.
But my one that I'm getting into, the one that keeps me up at night and makes me sweaty as hell, is orthorexia. So,
okay.
Do you know what orthorexia is?
I don't, but I gotta tell you, that name strikes fear.
Yep. This is my moment to do a little qualifier that for the remainder of the episode, I will be discussing eating disorders. So, if this is not for you, or this is, triggering, or you can't hear it, I get it. It was hard for me to write it. I could definitely understand that this would be hard to listen to if you're, like, not in a good place with that. So, like, big flag, if you are not in a place where you can hear about eating disorders and restrictive eating patterns and weight, do not listen to the next half of this episode. Just, like, straight up.
I mean,
playing
one
it
could
safe.
argue this whole episode, but yes, especially now.
But especially now, like, this is, it's okay to get off the ride. So, I think that's a pause, wave. It's been real. It's been wonderful to have you.
Enjoy.
Let's buckle back in, boys. We're going full force.
Yeah.
Now, orthorexia is a relatively new phenomenon, and it is characterized with an obsession with quote-unquote clean eating. Due to this resulting, like, limitation in one's diet, it can actually have the same effects as anorexia in terms of malnutrition.
Woof. Okay.
So the reason I went into this is because one of the concerns that one of the dietitians had when discussing the keto diet is they said it is a very socially restricting diet to have, right? You know, you go to a party, you can't have literally anything that they're serving. You should ideally be calculating all of your calories and, like, macros because you're on a rigid ratio system,
Right.
which makes it hard to go out. You know, after a while, like, if you start becoming so rigid in it, it's not enjoyable to be around somebody that, like, if this is a diet that you're prescribed, and I get that, it's fine, but, like, you've been around those people where they just go on and on about their diet because they just, at some
Right,
point,
it's awkward.
It's
right? Like,
awkward, and then you don't know what to do because you're like, you can't eat anything here,
right, and we need to eat.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and
Like,
it
very
sucks.
few restaurants, like, cater to keto diets because it's not
Right.
something that's meant to be carried on forever.
And also, even if they had a keto menu option, I kind of go back to the fact, like, the reason this is so, like, unsustainable is you can't just be like, I'm going to order the keto burger. It's like you have a set amount of ratio of calories to fat to carbs every day. Like, you know, I've seen so many keto recipes where, like, it has, like, 11 grams of carbs in it, and it's like a quote-unquote keto burger. That's, like, half of your daily carb
Yeah, that's all you can
allowance,
have.
right? Like, so this is not sustainable, and it is very restrictive. And so that's why I kind of wanted to delve into this, because I think this is just another extension in the orthorexia life cycle, and I'm going to kind of go into what that is, because this is something I'm very passionate about. So the term orthorexia was coined by a doctor and nutritionist, not a nutritionist, I think he's a naturopathic doctor in terms of, like, food, but it's Dr. Steve Brotman, and he published an article in Yoga Journal in 1997 titled The Health Food Eating Disorder. Now, I'm going to read a passage which I think it just so aptly summarizes this entire eating disorder. I actually very much encourage you to read the whole thing because it's really moving, and he talks about his own personal experiences and his, like, apprehensions about being a nutrition advisor as a result of this, but I'm just going to kind of focus on, like, what he has written. You can read it all at orthorexia.com. It's a whole website dedicated to this. So,
Thanks, Steve.
now I read. So this is about his experience as a chef at a commune in the 1970s. Very important
That's
to keep.
cool.
Isn't it cool? Like, they had a farm in-house, and he cooked to order everything, right?
Ah, that's rad.
Super rad. Also 1970s. So keep this in mind as you, like, draw parallels in your mind for like people that you have encountered in your time in Southern California.
Just break out the pen and paper here.
Yeah. Okay. So all communes attract idealists. Ours attracted food idealists. As a staff cook, I was required to prepare several separate meals at once to satisfy the insistent and conflicting demands of the members. The main entree was always vegetarian. However, a small but vocal group insisted on an optional serving of meat, since many vegetarians would not eat from pots and pans contaminated by fleshy vibrations. This meat had to be cooked in a separate kitchen. The cooks also had to satisfy the lacto-ovo vegetarians, or vegans, who eschewed all milk and egg products. The rights of the non-garlic, non-onion Hindu-influenced crowd could not be neglected either. They believed onion family foods provoked sexual desire. For the raw foodists and young children, we always laid out trays of sliced raw vegetables. However, a visitor once tried to convince me that chopping a vegetable would destroy its etheric field. I chased him out of the kitchen with a huge Chinese cleaver. Right?
I love this guy.
He's great. The macrobiotic adherents clamored for cooked vegetables free, of course, from deadly nightshade plants, such as tomatoes, potatoes, bell peppers, and eggplants. Some also insisted on eating fruits and vegetables when they were in season, while other communalists intemperately demanded oranges in January. Besides these opinions on which food to serve, there are many opinions on the manner in which it should be prepared. Most everyone agreed that nothing could be boiled in aluminum, except the gourmet cooks who insisted that only aluminum would spread the heat satisfactorily. By consensus, we always steamed vegetables in the minimum amount of water to avoid throwing away precious vitamins. Certain enthusiasts would even hover around the kitchen and volunteer to drink the darkish liquids left behind. About washing vegetables, however, controversy swirled. Some commune members firmly believed that vital substances clinging just under the skins must be preserved at all costs. Others felt that a host of evil pollutants adhered to the same surfaces that needed to be vigorously scrubbed away. One visitor explained that the best policy was to dip all vegetables in bleach and gave such a convincing argument for her belief that we should have adopted the principle at once were it not for a fortuitous bleach shortage.
Oh my god.
So 1970s.
Yeah.
Right? How much of this shit sounded like something you would hear in 2004?
Literally all of it. Like
All of it, right? And so, and I think, when at the time when you're kind of like in the dragon's den, proverbially speaking, like you can kind of get behind some of these arguments, like don't boil the food, you'll get rid of vitamins and minerals. Certain foods are bad for you. I don't really get the whole like ethereal thing, but like whatever. The part that really
like cultural
resonated,
stuff, like
cultural stuff, like you can't argue with like the Hindu thing, or I don't know, people who like charge crystals, who don't like this ethereal I don't know, man. Like that part I can't really wrap my head around, but like
says you who wanted to buy rose quartz the other day.
If it fucking helps, I am willing to buy anything at this point.
I will try anything. Is that what college has done to you?
Yeah, I've actually considered becoming Wiccan. I was like, what?
Hey, it couldn't do any harm.
And so he kind of goes on in this essay, which I've actually read a couple times in my life, about how like it escalated to the point where like at the time, like when he was, cooking at this point, he was like, everybody's a little weird, but like, I aim to please. And then he said that it got to a point where some people would not eat fruits or vegetables unless you ate them within 15 minutes of harvesting them from the ground, which caused severe issues with cooking.
Yeah,
right?
You think?
And so like, how many times, Brooke, if you will, in your time in Southern California, have you heard someone tell you why you need to omit an extremely specific food group because, quote unquote, science says so?
More than a few.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've gone through every bout of it, like the veganism, vegetarianism, cooked foods, raw foods, gluten, just dairy in general. What else am I thinking of?
I was told
Fats,
that corn
carbs,
was bad for you and that you needed to stop eating corn because your body can't digest it.
Which is not true.
Woo!
Whatever. But it's like, this is not, I don't know, I don't know if it's different in other areas. I make eating disorder jokes all the time because, like, I grew up in an environment where this is very normal thinking, right?
Yeah,
like,
let's be clear. You don't make jokes about people who have eating disorder.
No. I make jokes about this environment and atmosphere about eating. Like, I remember I visited Milan, shout out to Milan in Portland, and I was hesitant to eat the bread at the table, and Milan made a joke that was like, it's okay, Olivia, it's not California, you can eat the bread. And I laughed because, like, I don't know, it had to be early 2000s, it was carb free was the thing or whatever, right?
Right.
And her boyfriend was like, or her boy was like, are you serious? And I was like, well, I mean, we're joking, but like, I don't know, it was a thing in California for a while, no carbs. And he was like, that makes me so sad. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
when
me
you
too,
say it
bud.
that way. You know, and so like reading this kind of resonated with me, and I'm going to go into my history a bit and why this like whole keto thing very much bothers me, because it's really just a new extension of, well, you're not supposed to eat that because X, right?
Yes, it is another disordered eating.
It's just one other thing. And so my entire adolescence, I was plagued with eating issues. You know, I was kind of predisposed to it. I grew up in Southern California. I had my first diet when I was, like 8 or 9.
Right.
Love that you don't even argue with me. We're on the same page.
No,
Welcome to California.
You know, as soon as I said right, I was like, maybe that would resonate differently for other people. But yeah. I remember being in elementary school when I first started becoming self-conscious about my weight, which is bizarre.
Yeah. Like, because, like, of course, when you're a kid, you feel like this is the oldest I've ever been and the oldest I'll ever be. And, like, now as an adult, you're like, damn, I was a BB. I was
a young infant child.
Yeah. And so, like, I had my first diet when I was in, like, 4th grade, which is, like, what, 8 or 9 years old?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And
like,
so...
it's like 10. Oh,
yeah, 10-ish, right? And so when I was, I'm going to say 14 or 15, I transitioned to veganism because I watched Forks Over Knives once. And I have much to say about Forks Over Knives because now, as an ex-agricultural engineer, it's all fucking bullshit, but that's another story for another day.
Another episode.
Another episode. And I love vegan cooking. It's so delicious. It's expensive, but it's delicious. But, you know, it was a gradual escalation of I couldn't eat vegan food. I couldn't eat meat or animal products because it was causing cancer in my body. Because that's essentially what Forks Over Knives tells you. Or Food Inc. as well, I believe.
Yeah, Food Inc. has been repeatedly struck down.
That movie. Fuck that movie. Again, another story for another day. But, you know, and then it escalated to, like, I can't eat anything that has pesticides, so I have to eat all organic. Then I feared GMOs, and then I feared packaged foods, and then I feared cooked foods. And then towards the end, I was like raw vegan, it was wreaked havoc on my digestive system. I just don't have the digestive system for like a raw diet.
Right.
I could barely eat anything without feeling full. I was nauseous literally all the fucking time. I was doing
God, I remember like 3 years ago when we like started hanging out again, and you were like, is it normal to like always have a stomach ache? And I was like, no. And you were like, haha, man, that sucks. Anyway, I feel like I'm gonna vomit constantly. And I was like,
you know what I messaged you to? I remember it was a bad day when I was at community college, and I texted you, and I went, oh, I had a morning vomit today, so I hope that the day improves. And you went, I'm sorry, you had a what? And I was like, you know, when you like wake up and you're just so anxious you vomit, and you went, no. And that was the first time in my life that I found out that was not normal.
Oh, God, that's...
sad.
That's terrifying.
And so, like, me being on a diet where the food isn't cooked just fucking wreaked havoc. I couldn't eat anything. I was probably eating maybe 800 to 1,000 calories, not even deliberately, but because what I was eating was not working for me. I couldn't eat food. And, you know, I used the science to back it because technically the science wasn't wrong. You can use science to say whatever you want, really, truly, if you don't understand it. Me. And, like, that was kind of the escalation is you can argue that anything is bad for you if you use the right science. So, like, as an example, because this is still how my brain works. I still struggle with this. Brooke, name a meal, and, like, I will show you how my brain works. Just like a normal lunch.
Okay, today I had a chicken breast with peas and rice.
It's very straightforward. I don't know.
I mean, you said this. Name a lunch. It's my lunch. It's what I had.
Were they fresh peas?
I mean, they were cooked
frozen
yesterday.
peas? They were cooked yesterday, so they were cooked before, which means that you microwaved them or you boiled them.
I microwaved them, Olivia.
Well, if you microwaved them, that means you probably lost some of the nutrients when you microwaved it. And was it white rice or brown rice?
It was white rice.
So white rice means that it has more carbs and it has less fiber on it, which also means it's going to potentially increase the fat in your body, all right? And you said you had chicken breast?
Yeah.
And so chicken breast is meat, so that has saturated fat in it, which could be bad for you if you eat in excess. Do you know how much it weighed?
No.
So that's how my brain works literally all the fucking time to this day.
God.
Right? Like I was walking through the food court and this is exactly the thought process I went through. I am starving and I want carbs. Wetzel's Pretzels has carbs. It has a pretzel that I really like that has meat on it. Meat is protein, but it has cheese. This is a high-fat pretzel and it's just white carbs. I can't eat that. Maybe I could just get a sugary drink and some other food. Nope, sugar is bad for you and increases the risk of diabetes. Okay, maybe I could get Panda Express. I don't know. That's deep fried and has a lot of carbs. Okay, what's the best way I could do this? I guess I could get a bowl with brown rice and vegetables and then maybe some of the fun meat. I don't know, but the fun meat is fried, so do I deserve that? And maybe if I eat brown rice, it'll be too hard on my digestive system. And also, I want to be full for a long time because I'm in lab. And it's expensive. So, what other alternatives we have? Oh, we have the burrito place, but the burrito place is expensive. And the vegan place, which is objectively the most healthy in my own mind, is the most expensive place in this food court. Well, this is frustrating. I guess I just won't eat. Right? And that is how my brain worked for like a year.
So what you're describing is an eating disorder.
This is straight up an eating disorder.
Yeah, I want to.
This is orthorexia.
Absolutely clear.
Yeah, this is like 100%. This is orthorexia in the flesh.
Right.
And perhaps the reason I'm so passionate about this is because, again, Brooke and I both grew up in an area where when I would explain to people that this is a problem I had, they didn't agree that it was a problem because I was right, quote unquote. Right? Because I'm I can justify a reason to not eat everything. And they'd be like, well, meat isn't good for you. And I'm like, okay, whether or not it's good for you, this isn't healthy. Like, this is not a good way to think about food.
Yeah,
right?
It's a dysfunctional relationship with the thing that keeps you alive. Like, yeah.
Right? And to touch back on that passage, the reason I read it is because all of these people had very, very passionate feelings about the correct way to eat food. God. And it's really just escalated and manifested itself into different diets as time passes, right? So before it was keto, what was it? Before it was keto, it was paleo, which was trash. Before it was paleo, it was vegan vegetarianism, which is like trash if you don't know what you're doing. Before that, it's juice cleanses. Before that, it was eating raw. Before that, it was low carb. Before that, low fat. Before that, extreme calorie control. Whatever it is, it's something. Yeah. Time passes, people debunk it, and they're like, of course that's stupid. And then they just do something else. Like, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's just like something else that's quote unquote the right way to eat.
Yeah.
And it's keto is just as restrictive as
very
any
much
of these.
This feeling I get when I hear people talk about any of these diets, and now it's keto, is like, I suffer more than you when I eat, so therefore I'm better than you. Which, like, this should not be a thing where you're suffering. Eating food should not be a thing that you hate, right? That's
right? And anytime I was on any of these diets, it was such a chore to eat food. Because it's like, it's that thought of like, can't eat this because it's too high in fat. I can't eat this because it's too high in carbs. I can't eat this because it's got sugar. Like, that's fucking taxing.
Yeah,
right?
You just get exhausted. Even when I was counting calories like a year or so ago, I stopped and then gained weight again because like it was just exhausting. I hated myself when I went over and I like beat myself up about it, and that's not a healthy way to relate to what you're using to fuel your body. So
yeah, right? It's all very fucked, and just masquerading it with scientific backing is dishonest.
Right.
And also, every body is different, and also you can use science to say whatever you want it to say if you don't understand science.
Right.
Me included, because I was in this like group of people.
Oh yeah, I remember I used to say like, it's just math, it's calories in, calories out, and that is so fucking reductive. Like, I mean, it's wrong, first of all. But, like,
Yeah.
even if that were, like, a full picture of how to lose weight, like, there are always extenuating circumstances, right? I was eating 1,500 calories a day and still gaining weight. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, to eat anything less than that would have been detrimental. I would have been starving myself, right? So,
Right.
you know.
Which is like, so, you know, and everybody's different, and like this one size fits all is just not appropriate. It
Right.
says straight up you should not use keto if you have metabolic disorders, if you have risk of heart disease or cardiovascular disease, because OBS, right? But like, you know, people are just like, oh, this is the thing that you need to, and you know, I can't tell you how many times, at least this is in LA, how many times I've heard other people advocating to other people about the keto diet. Like, I was at a restaurant maybe a year ago with my grandma, and I heard the girls next to me like talking, and they can't have been more than 18. And one girl was like, I've been doing this keto thing, like, you should definitely try it out. I've lost like 5 pounds on it. I've been doing it for like a couple weeks now, which like
5
know, just eat
pounds in a
healthy.
couple weeks?
that's also what I thought in my head.
Shit.
It doesn't seem worth it, because then she followed to say, like, you have these like flu-like symptoms for like 2 weeks where you feel awful, and it's called the keto flu. And her friend's like, she's like, but then after that your body just switches to burning fat, and it's like really good. Like, everybody's doing it. Like, this is not even me being
Christ.
like a caricature of people. These are actually the words I heard from people. Just like looping people into your own disordered eating.
Right, because they
Right?
don't know it's
Because-
disordered. They've got everybody saying that it's the thing, right? Like, I
Right?
heard people talking about it like it was a miracle.
Yeah. And it is not. And so now currently doctors, where there may be some benefit to this ketogenic diet, but a lot of doctors are really apprehensive about prescribing it because, one, it requires an intense amount of medical intervention to make sure you're doing it right and you're not starving yourself, because you shouldn't really be losing weight on it.
Right.
They fear that it's socially restrictive and very strongly linked to disordered eating if not done right. According to the Boston Medical Center, about 45 million Americans a year go on diets, right?
Oh, God.
And spend a collectively $33 billion on weight loss products.
I want someone to, like, this opened my eyes one day when I thought about it this way. I saw a post that said, if Weight Watchers worked, it would go out of business. And, like, that sounds very, like,
Yeah.
one-liner tweet. But, like, if you think about it, yeah, why would anybody make a weight loss product that works? They've got paying customers that keep coming back, right?
Right.
And, like,
Yeah. And
none of it works. And none of it works sustainably. Like, you
And-
can lose weight on a thing, but, like, the second you stop, you gain it all back. And that's objectively worse for your health.
yeah, and then you gain the weight back and you're like, fuck, it's because I fell off the wagon. And then you go back to, you yo-yo back and forth for the rest of your life. Like, literally every woman I've grown up with, whether it's like my parents, friends, family, relatives, they all yo-yo for years, because it's just very, I guess, common
And
weight
that's
loss culture
so
here.
bad
and
for
it's
you.
horrible for you. You know, and I could go on and on and on about the money spent making you feel like you're fat, so that you spend money on diet products that objectively aren't incredibly effective, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to make you lose weight is to eat well and intuitively and exercise a moderate amount. That's really like all it, you know,
I think,
but like
I think
not
it's
to
important
be.
that, like, the losing of the weight is not the thing that should be the goal.
No.
Like, I
No.
read this crazy thing about weight loss in America in particular, and I don't know how much this extends to abroad, but I learned that being overweight, having an overweight marked BMI, was only labeled as a health risk in the United States, so that health insurance companies could mark it as a liability and charge more for Americans who
Excellent.
weighed the average amount. So the
Also, BMI is fucking bullshit.
It's bullshit. Oh my god.
Like, I've known bodybuilders that are like clinically obese in the BMI, but they're like objectively chiseled.
Right. Yeah.
Just because it's weight weight versus height. It doesn't factor into like
Muscle
any
mass.
muscle composition. Or like I know so many girls like growing up who like they were the type that where I was like, man, I wish I looked like them, and they were just like blowing through Peeps and Oreos and were like rail thin. Like, not an objective measure of health at all, but of course we always compare ourselves to others. And like, again, that is the thing, is if you go to a doctor, you're like, I objectively would like to lose weight. They're going to create a diet plan that's just about eating well and then exercising a moderate amount, which like objectively sucks. Like I've been on like diets like that. It's the fucking worst, because then you go to events and you're like, sorry, I can't enjoy this cake because I'm trying to not eat that much sugar, right? And like I don't want to live the rest of my life like that.
No.
But like that's the boring answer, is unfortunately what it is. And I think people really, 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 really want it to be like some sneaky fix where you just do the keto diet for like a month and it like resets your metabolism forever and then you could eat whatever you want, which is just not how it works.
Right, yeah.
Right? Or like, I just won't eat a carb again and I'll look beautiful. And you're like,
No, you
that's
won't.
not... What? You know, and I'm deeply aware that I'm probably going to like struggle with this for the rest of my life, unfortunately. And this is exacerbated by diet culture. Dude, I send these to Brooke all the time because I fucking despise them with all essence in my soul. Those weight loss posts on Tumblr,
Yeah.
Tumblr, Instagram, drive me fucking insane. I sent one to her when I was researching this, and it was like a typical burger, like 680 calories,
Yeah.
which is untrue.
No.
Like a typical bacon burger. And then they were like a keto burger, and they replaced the fucking bread with avocado.
With just a
and
solid mass of avocado. What? How?
And
do
if
you
you
put
look
a
at
fucking
the caloric
avocado?
breakdown,
How do you put an avocado in
Yeah.
like a burger bun mold? Huh? That's insane.
you were so mad. And also, my comment was it was 68 grams of fat.
Right?
Because they left the bacon and the cheese and the red meat in there.
Right, of course.
And they were like, but we took out the bun.
Yeah.
Took out the bun.
Also, where are these people finding burgers for 680 calories? It was a double bacon cheeseburger. Are you fucking joking?
Fuck off.
A double at In-N-Out is very
off.
well near 1,000 calories on its own. Like, come on. All of it is
what was the one I
awful.
sent you today? That was like a healthy lunch versus an unhealthy lunch.
Ugh.
And they had the fucking audacity to say to my face, they compared like a ham sandwich with like vegetable juice.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like it was like some kind of like health chips or something.
Right.
And it was like 673 calories. And then they're like the unhealthy lunch. And it was a McDonald's burger and fries and a Diet Coke for like 630. As if
Fuck off.
you're telling me that a sandwich with vegetable juice and healthy chips is worse because it's 40 more fucking calories than a McDonald's sandwich?
I don't even
No.
understand the point
I object.
it was trying to make. Like, what? Why were? It was supposedly a diet thing, but the only thing that it was saying was like, hey, that unhealthy lunch you want is less calories. Like, I don't understand
What does that mean?
the goal here.
What does that
Also,
mean?
That's a fucking lie. A Big Mac from McDonald's is like 700 calories. A large fry is like 5. What? What is any of this?
Oh my god, I hate them. I hate them so
they're just
fucking
lying.
much.
They're just lying.
And you know what I hate even more than those are the ones that are like these pseudo anti-orthorexic ones where they're like, I don't know, what is it? It's like, I'm gonna make up one. It's like keto cookies. Oh no, that's what it was. It's like keto sorbet. Good for when you have a sweet tooth, but you like want to feel healthy. Regular ice cream. Also good, and you shouldn't feel guilty about it. It's like, I know that's what this says, but I get a tone.
Yes,
I get a tone
I don't
from
believe
this.
you. Interesting how that fucking works.
Or it's literally like fitness gurus
Right.
that are literally have chiseled abs, and they're like, it's okay to have cake sometimes. And I'm like, Veronica, you're in the gym 6 fucking hours a day.
Yeah.
Of course you can eat a cake.
They're doing fucking
Of course
3
you can
hours
fucking eat a
of
cake.
cardio and like 2 hours of weight training a day, and they're like, don't worry
Yeah.
if you have a scone once in a while. And it's like, I wish you were dead.
I don't know. It comes off as so disingenuous
It's
when they're like,
condescending.
it's like weight loss is just about, like personal growth and like learning and being intuitive and forgiving yourself. And then the next post is them doing meal preps that look like they haven't seen a seasoning in 6 years.
Oh my God, there's nothing. There's a Vine that blows my mind every time I see it. And I'm sure anybody who fucking watches Cody Co has seen this.
I love Cody Co.
He's fantastic. But it's this guy, they're like a bodybuilder couple or whatever. And like, it's Valentine's Day and the guy wants to get his lady something nice. And so he goes out and buys her a box of chocolates because women like chocolates. And then she comes in and sees it and she just shakes her head sadly and points at her abs meaningfully. And then he goes out and, like, meal preps a bland-ass-looking chicken with a bed of brown rice and asparagus on the side. And he presents these stacked Tupperwares to her. And she fucking hugs the stack of Tupperware. I hate this life. What is this life? I'd rather die.
Yeah,
I will eat an entire loaf of bread before I meal prep bland-ass white chicken breast with veggies on the side for all 4 days of my week. Like, what? All 5 days. I'm so angry I forgot how many days are in the week, Olivia.
And it's funny, I've done that meal prep before, and it is just as bad as it sounds.
It sounds
like I was
soul-crushing.
like, how do I cook the chicken breast? And they're like, you're gonna boil it. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you're gonna boil it. And I'm like, what seasoning do I put? And they're like, salt and pepper.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. And so, anyway, back to my point of I fucking hate this atmosphere of like, you're telling people, because we live in this body positive environment. So you're telling people to be happy in their own skin and be forgiving and eat what they enjoy as long as it's not unhealthy.
Right.
However, also, if you eat a carb, you're gonna fucking die, right? Like, and like both sides pit against the other, and I feel, at the very least, like you can't really win one way or the other. Because if you go radically crazy health, it is objectively not good for your own well-being. It's not for mine, right?
Yeah.
But if I give a little, we still have a pretty fat-phobic culture, so I'm fucked. I can't win, right?
Right, so this is the thing, is it's not even so much that, like, these fucking not even diet, but fitness blogs and, like, fitness inspiration Instagrams. It's not that they're saying directly to your face, it's okay if you eat whatever you want, but you'll die if you eat a carb. Like, they're saying it's okay if you love your your own body and you're comfortable in your own skin, but just in case you want to be pretty, here's all this. And it's like,
yeah, that's what it is.
Fucking,
that's what it is.
It's the same or worse.
Yeah, because all the accounts are like, they have these body positive posts about how it's okay to have a cookie, you don't have to internalize it, and then the next 6 videos are how to do deadlifts.
Right.
And then you're like, so what's
the truth?
the goal here? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be in the gym for 5 hours a day and meal prepping? Or am I supposed to live a little and have some ice cream? Or like, the phrasing is like, you have a cheat meal. Instead of falling off the wagon, you keep eating healthy and you don't hold it against yourself. And I'm like, it's the tone.
That's still language that says that you have something to feel guilty about. It's like, forgive yourself for fucking what? For eating a bagel? Fuck off, Kimberly. God damn, maybe I like cream cheese.
I feel like this
Jesus.
resonates a lot with us because we grew up in Southern California, and this is just
right,
like,
and like, this is
God,
our reality.
it's such a looks-oriented environment.
Yeah, we are not, the target audience of these Instagrams, obviously. But like, I shudder to think, Instagrams, like, accounts. Like the individual
right.
Instagrams.
Okay, yeah. No, it's
Oh God, I'm fucking 80 years old. But no, like I shudder to think, like, children these days who are growing up with social media in a way that we didn't, what they must feel stumbling across these profiles that basically just straight up encourage disordered eating.
Yeah. Straight up.
It's awful.
So, to go back to keto, now that we've yelled about fucking bagels for like 45 minutes.
Oh, right. Yeah. Keto was what
that's
we were
what we were
talking
doing.
about.
Yeah. So, you know, my obsessive eating tendencies were definitely exacerbated by this diet culture telling me how foods are full of toxins or how certain foods are inherently bad for me and like tantamount to poisoning myself. I mean, fucking Christ, a lot of these vegan documentaries are essentially saying if you eat animal products, you're going to get cancer. Like, God fucking forbid I have bacon once, right? Like, it's literally another day and another day. So keto is extremely dangerous to engage in without medical intervention. Objectively, I'm like not going to argue that. It is. You should have a doctor advising you, documenting your keto levels. It can lead to a decrease in blood pressure in a severely negative way. It can produce kidney stones. It could have drastic weight loss.
God.
And then in extreme cases, neurological effects, right? It is an intense weight loss. Like not a
guess
weight
that
loss,
makes
it's an
sense, yeah.
intense diet, right? So, of course, it's going to be mitigated with a team of doctors. But how many people do you know that are doing the keto diet that are regularly going to a doctor for this? They're
None.
not.
None.
You're just like
None.
making burgers with avocados instead of buns. And so I'm deeply concerned with the frequency in which we cycle through these optimal diets because yo-yoing is bad. Just like physiologically, yo-yoing with your weight is bad for you. But also the psychological effect that this has on people is like so apparent. Like people like me, right? And this one gets a little personal, but this is therapeutic for me. So like at my worst, Brooke, you didn't see me when I was like this. At my worst, I was about 5'6" when I was like 16. I was like 120 to 125 pounds, right?
Oof,
Currently,
okay.
I'm 5'8" and about 155, right? And I see these old photos of me, and I've seen one photo of me because I deleted them all because they all have my ex-boyfriend in it, and I fucking hate him. And I just looked so dead in the eyes, and like my skin was chalky, and like I looked so thin. And I've told people for years, like the period where I was vegan is like quote unquote the healthiest years of my life because in my own brain, I'm thinking like I'm having all these juice cleanses, I'm eating all these fruits and vegetables. You know, little did I know I was vastly under eating and running like 15K a week. And like it wasn't until I saw that picture maybe 6 months ago, I was like, oh shit. No, I didn't look like healthy at all. I looked clearly not well. Right. And I wanted to do this whole episode because, you know, if any of this resonates with you, like my example of an orthorexic thought pattern, or if any of this you're like, damn, that me though, like I sincerely urge for you to like seek help if it's in your means, or like talk to people about this, because I feel like we keep a lot of it in our own head because, you know, with the way that the environment, like the current like social environment is, it's not really acceptable to talk about like weight or like weight anxiety. It's kind of like dismissive when you do. So I think we kind of keep it all to ourselves. And then if you do, you might not realize like how unkind you're being to yourself. Like your habits might be more disordered than you think. Like, you know, just be intuitive with yourself. If you feel guilty when you eat certain foods or like you consciously avoid stuff because in your own head you're like, that's bad for me, and if I eat it, it's the end of the world, which was really my thought pattern for like years, right? You are like far too important to waste your life trying to look a certain way rather than trying to be happy. And like this is all keto is just another iteration of legitimized eating disorders.
Right.
And I'm fucking sick of it, and I'm over it, and I want to do a whole episode on it because I was done. Stop. It's time to stop.
It's over.
So
Keto is
I
hashtag
single-handedly
canceled.
ended the keto diet
Way to go,
with
Olivia.
my bare fucking hands.
Yep, you wrung the life out of it.
Gah. So, anyway, that's what keeps me up at night.
God, yeah.
Brooke, would you like to share what keeps you up at night? I know you yelled about the bagel thing. I know that really resonates
Yeah,
with you.
the
It
bagel
does with
thing in
me.
particular. Yeah. I think I don't know, all of it, and that's such a cop-out answer, is all of it keeps me up at night, but, like, the whole concept of diets in general, I mean, it's... There's so much good food that isn't perfect for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
most of the shit that you eat probably could be better for you. Whatever, man. We're all fucking dying anyway. Like,
Yeah.
and that's it's what keeps me up at night is the kids. And it's always the kids. But
Yeah.
there are so many kids growing up today that have an access to the internet, to social media in a way that we just didn't. And we had it fucking bad enough. We
Yeah.
did not get out of this unscathed. We were still exposed to keto. And like, obviously, when we were kids, it was different. It was a whole other fad. But, like, you know, we were still exposed to diet culture and weight loss culture when we were fucking children. We were babies, and we still...
Like, do you remember, like, 17 magazine had, like, exercises and, like...
God.
Yeah, that was, like, my entire, like, adolescent career was, like, copying all those exercises in 17, and they were like, instead of making your food delicious, have you tried just adding water instead? Like,
When you're hungry, drink 3 glasses of water and then pray. It's like,
no, that's
fuck.
literally, like, straight up arguments. They say, are you sure you're hungry, or are you dehydrated?
No, I'm pretty sure I'm fucking hungry, Brenda. Anyway, like, but now we have these kids that have the entire universe at their fingertips in their cell phones, and they are going to be bombarded with this stuff way more than we ever were. Like, I had it easy. My parents did not get on me about my weight in the way that I heard some of my friends' families did to them. And I can't imagine that pressure put on somebody, a developing brain who's, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's disastrous. It's disastrous for adults. It's even more so for kids. And that is chilling to me that they have to go through that.
Oh, yeah. And, like, it's so, we talked about, like, the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. It's so easy to get sucked into that bubble, of, like, you never hear anything else. Like, when I was vegan, I never heard, like, any pro-GMO stuff, like,
Right, yeah, of course.
pro-conventional you would never show up, right? And now it's, like, even doubled down and worse. You never even have the opportunity to think of any alternatives.
Right.
But if you're being communicated to you, like, what you're eating is poison and you will get cancer if you eat this, and you have no, like, debunking resources available to you, or you don't even know where to seek them out, or it's so new it's just not present. Like,
Right, or if it's coming from your family.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that shit is going to be there forever, right? And you can get help, but you just have to be, like, at least for me, speaking from personal experience, that mentality is always going to kind of be there for me. I just have to, like, manage it and know that these are not rational thoughts.
Right.
This is
Yes.
all phobic eating. And I always think it's very interesting when I bring up the orthorexia, because, like, there are very few people I know that are actually aware that this is a thing. They just, like, don't talk about it. And I think the reason that it's not really brought up in common culture is because there's so much money being funneled into these weight loss companies. If you kind of held up this thing that said, hey, there is an eating disorder that is built upon the foundations of fearing, quote unquote, unclean foods, and it's a legitimate reason to be cautious about dieting, then you'd be kind of pulling the rug out from under this $33 billion, like,
And
industry.
what's more important than money?
Money. And like, again, I've had so many arguments with people where I'm like, you can eat this food, like, people make the argument that bacon is a carcinogen because it's on, like, the carcinogen rating scale, and, like, it's the same people who are telling me that they're like, cured meats are, I think it's a class 3 carcinogen, maybe it's a class 2 carcinogen.
Yeah.
Are still drinking alcohol, which is a class 1 carcinogen. having a glass of alcohol or having a bacon cheeseburger every once in a while is not going to fucking kill you, right?
No.
And
No.
I think the people who are telling you that it will are probably not people that you should be listening to and are probably out there to make some money off of misery, perhaps, capitalism.
Yeah, go
Another
figure.
reason.
Capitalism's out for people who are miserable. Who knew?
Well, that's my episode. What a bummer.
Just remember, kids, your weight is not a correlation to your health. If you're thin, it doesn't mean you're healthy. If you're fat, it doesn't mean you're unhealthy. And sometimes a bagel it just tastes better than being skinny.
I fucking love bagels.
Bagels are so good.
Fucking much. Oh, I had a bagel
so good.
today, and it was a cheese and jalapeno bagel, and I'm
Hell
still
yeah.
fucking thinking about it, and I got cream cheese on it.
Yes. That tastes so
Oh,
much better than
fuck.
being 120 pounds for me.
Yeah.
So that's me.
For me, also as well, pee much. So,
Be safe and
glad
healthy,
I got
friends.
this out of my system.
Yeah.
Sweating out of my, skin. Sweating bullets right now because I'm in a closet.
Let's get you
Fan
out of the closet.
isn't on. All right, let's get out of the closet. Me in 8th grade.
I was trying to figure out how to make that joke.
No, just kidding. I was still very closeted in 8th grade. I'm going to say
Yeah.
it was about 16 for me.
God,
This isn't what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
whatever. I was 19.
so-
Yeah. It all started when I was 19. Yeah, so we've got social media. Thanks for listening. We have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, but who cares? That's at TTKMeUp. We also have email where we take submissions for campfire store horries. Neat. Good. Well, God, the lemonade hit a little harder than I thought, huh? No, yeah, campfire horror stories whenever we damn well please. You can send those to ttkmeup@gmail.com, or if you want to just drop us a line because you like us and want to let us know, that would be real nice. We have a website, that's ttkmeup.com. We have links there to, the show, and also our Patreon, where we have 5 lovely patrons who are our new favorite people on the planet. If you want to join that list, you can go ahead and donate whatever you like. When we get to $100 worth of monthly donations, we're going to be doing a Reddit, probably, AMA. So you can ask all those weird questions that you have lurking in the back of your minds. We also have links to TeePublic, which is where we have our merch store. We have blankets, we have shirts, we have baby onesies, we have notebooks and throw pillows and so many
It
other.
blows my fucking mind that we have baby onesies.
Isn't that
Dude,
amazing?
If you buy this for your baby and you'd send a picture to me, I will lose my fucking mind. Please.
We'll put
Please
your
do it
picture
for
on
me.
the website if you do that.
Yes.
That'd be fantastic. And I think I have rattled through everything that we have. Also, we love you. So cute.
Yeah.
We do. Thank you for listening to us rant all the time. We appreciate it, and we appreciate
It
you.
means the world to us.
It really does.
Um,
Leave us a review if you feel so inclined, if you really liked
only
us.
a good one.
Don't be mean,
Because
Olivia.
you'll hurt our feelings.
No, if you have constructive criticism, I would prefer an email. Let's be honest, I don't want to drop that ratio. But
No, we've gotten constructive feedback and have
We have,
adapted
and it's been
adjusted,
nice.
So
yeah, thank you, everybody, so
yeah,
much.
please be responsible with your body. Don't fucking drink charcoal or I will reach my hand out of this fucking speaker.
Don't drink alkaline water.
Oh, it does fucking nothing. It
does
does nothing. It is useless. You have a systemically very structurally sound buffering system in your body. If it did anything,
Hey, Olivia.
if it did anything fucking at all,
Hey, Olivia.
you would die.
Hey, Olivia.
Don't drink alkaline water. I will reach my hand through this fucking speaker and punch you in the throat.
Hey, Olivia.
I mean it. I'm sorry.
Do you think we should do an episode on fad foods?
I would do charcoal. There's
Perfect.
nothing I hate more on this earth.
Activated charcoal.
Fuck activated charcoal so much. Don't rub it on your teeth. You'll fucking blow through teeth enamel.
Ooh.
I hate it.
Yeah, those toothpastes are no good.
Don't
Do it. We love you.
don't do it.
Bye.
Anyway, I love you. Goodbye. It's been real deuces. Oh man. man, this is going to be a forever, isn't it?
Hi, we're Cutting Class Podcast. Are you interested in skinny dipping with Mao Zedong?
How about listening to sexy and suicidal subliminal messages?
Maybe destroying an entire city with flaming birds?
Or how about having a bowl of anti-pornography cereal? We're two high school history teachers that like to cover the lesser-known stories of American and world history.
You can check us out on iTunes or anywhere else that you get your podcasts or cuttingclasspodcast.com.